Hey there, and welcome into another episode of the Route 1 Rundown. If you eat, sleep, and breathe Maryland basketball, then right now, you are probably some combination of sad, heartbroken, frustrated, etc. But this is the place for you. And of course, today, I'm going to be diving into that 73-70 loss that Maryland just suffered moments ago in Columbus at the hands of the Buckeyes. I'm your host, Steve Gorgie, and I'm excited to be here. Well, as excited as I can be following a loss like that to talk some Terps. And I'm going to be diving into that. I'm going to be breaking that game down. But first, a reminder, if you're listening to this show, you want to be watching it, you got to go and check us out at the Department of Hoops on YouTube. That's where you can find this show on video. It's one of the best places on the internet for local basketball talk. So make sure you go and check us out there. That's youtube.com/@ Department of Hoops. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Just moments after Maryland's heartbreaking loss to the Buckeyes in Columbus, I am recording this, and it was frustrating. It was disappointing. Maryland came out at the start of that game, and they looked like a team that was truly prepared to take the next step. That was a team that was hot, that was coming off a nice rest, a nice week-long layoff, and they looked at the start of the game like they were a team that was ready to dominate. They were a team that was ready to hit this stretch run and really compete for a Big Ten crown, because over the last week, things have really tightened up at the top of the Big Ten standings. Michigan State, which was previously undefeated in league play, suffered 2 losses out on the West Coast, and you kind of have this logjam now at the top of the league, where Purdue, Michigan State, and Michigan all have 2 losses coming into to this game. Wisconsin, UCLA, and Maryland all had 4 losses, so it was getting tight up at the top. And to start this game, Maryland looked like a team that was ready to really throw their hat into the ring, as maybe they are the second best team in the Big Ten. Maybe they are the best team in the Big Ten. Maybe they can compete for a Big Ten title. And that's how it looked, and that's how it felt early in that game. Terps get off to an 8-zip start, all 8 points at the hands of Julian Reese and Derek Queen. And much like the last game against Ohio State, the Buckeyes were without 7-footer Aaron Bradshaw, and it looked like Maryland was going to dominate inside all night long. Maryland built a really nice big lead in the first half, but it wasn't without some issues. Jacoby Gillespie got into foul trouble. He picked up 2 first-half fouls, but nevertheless, Maryland was playing a really good first half, about as good as a first, 15 or so minutes as you could possibly ask for, and Maryland was actually up by, let's see, what were they up here? I think it was 39-22 with 3.5 minutes left. 39-22, 17 points on the road with 3.5 minutes left in the first half, and it looked like this had a chance to really turn into a rout. And that's where I think this game all changed. 39-22, Ohio State looked lifeless. They looked listless. Maryland looked like they were just going to have their way all night long, that Julian Reese was just going to dominate this game. And make no mistake about it, Julian Reese was dominating the game to that point. I was thinking about what I was going to say about Julian Reese at that point in the game, because he had an unbelievable first half. He had an unbelievable game in general, but with 3.5 minutes to go, Maryland's up by 17. And then it kind of all fell apart for the Terps after that. Instead of going into halftime with a 17, 18, 20-point lead, they go into halftime up just 9. Now, that's still a nice first half, but given where they were 3.5 minutes earlier, you would think that you could go into halftime with a double-digit lead. And that is where Bruce Thornton, Ohio State's point guard, started to really get going, started his takeover of this game. And that was one of the more disappointing things to me, is that at the end of that first half, without Jacoby Gillespie on the court, that they could not finish off the first half the way that they started it. And it came down in a lot of ways to defense to me, and the fact that they could not defend Bruce Thornton effectively. And Thornton ends up playing in this game all 40 minutes. He goes off for 31 points, 6 assists. He is absolutely, no doubt about it, the story of the game, even before he banked in the game-winning three with 7 seconds left in this one. But at the end of that first half, he started to take over. He started to dominate. And Maryland, without Jacoby Gillespie on the court, looked a little bit lost offensively on a couple of those possessions. Certainly looked lost defensively, as, let me just walk you through it. Bruce Thornton, 3:10 to go, makes a jumper. Bruce Thornton, 2:17 to go, makes a layup. Bruce Thornton, 1:42 to go, gets to the free throw line, hits 2 free throws. Bruce Thornton, 52 seconds to go in the first half, hits another layup. Bruce Thornton, right there in the last 3.5 minutes, scored 2, 4, 6, 8 points. 8 points for the Buckeyes in the last 3.5 minutes there for Bruce Thornton. And John Mobley gets a bucket as well. And to me, that was where Maryland lost a golden opportunity in this one. Because the feeling in that building, and it was not an excited crowd. It was not an energized crowd. It didn't seem like an energized Ohio State team. It seemed and felt like Maryland had a chance to put this one away early. A lot like they did in Xfinity Center in December, where that game was over from the jump. Maryland routed Ohio State by getting off to a great first half against them. It seemed like that was going to be a real possibility in this one, and Maryland let Ohio State hang around. Maryland struggled without Jacoby Gillespie on the court at the end of that first half, and Ohio State was able to make a run. So Maryland goes into the break with a 9-point lead, but that's okay. It's not over. Not even close to over. You got to be happy with a 9-point lead on the road. I mean, right? Are you kidding me? Of course you will take that. If you told any Maryland fan, if you told me before this game, Maryland's going to have a 9-point lead at halftime of this game, after a week off, that they were going to shoot, I'm trying to find the first half stats right now, because Maryland shot an unbelievable percentage in the first half. Maryland in the first half, let's see, visitor stats right here. Maryland in the first half of that game shot from the floor 59%. 16 of 27 from the floor, but only 1 of 7 from 3. That might be the key right there, or part of the key right there, to why they couldn't put that away. I actually think, again, I think it had a lot more to do with inability to defend Bruce Thornton at the end of that half, and they just didn't look crisp without Jacoby Gillespie in that game. Of course, Jacoby Gillespie in foul trouble in the game. He played sparingly in the first half. He only played in the first half 9 minutes. He didn't even play half of that first half. He only had 4 points in the first half. It reminded me actually a lot of the Washington game, which I thought was his worst game of the year. But nevertheless, Maryland is up 9 at halftime. In the second half, Maryland comes out. They struggle offensively to start the half, but they are up 11 with about 8.5 minutes to go. Selton Miguel hit as the play-by-play crew said, he went 1 on 5 and hit a 3 to put Maryland up 11. And at that point, you felt like, okay, there's a little breathing room again. Maryland can finish out this game. Maryland still has the advantage inside. Julian Reese is having a great game, and it's unfortunate that is going to get lost in all of this. The game that Julian Reese had, where he puts up 24 points, 13 rebounds. I've talked time and time again about what a rock he is for this team, for this program. I was hoping to come on here tonight and speak more on that, and I will talk about Reese in just a bit here too, because in every game, no matter if it's a loss, no matter if it's a win, there is something good that comes out of it. These games, the margins are so thin in these games, it's not all good or not all bad. I know right now it feels like everything is all bad for the Terps coming off this loss, but it's not. There is still some good out there. But nevertheless, you felt like 8.5 minutes to go. Okay, Maryland can escape with this one. You can maybe just get out of there with a win and, survive in advance, right? It's tough to win on the road. If you're a Terps fan, you know that. It's tough to win on the road in conference, but it was not to be. And again, it was because Bruce Thornton was absolutely unbelievable down the stretch for Ohio State. He was the aggressor in this game. He was making that offense go, and Maryland, quite frankly, could not stop him. And what I realized tonight in the second half of that game is there is something that is keeping Maryland from being an Maryland, I think right now is a good to very good team, but they're not an elite team. They are not yet an elite team. And when I say elite, I mean a team that I think can get to the Final Four, that can win a national championship. And there might only be two teams in the country that can do that this year. It might only be Auburn and Duke, but Maryland is not at that level, and they're probably not at that second level where I'd put a program right now like an Alabama, I think is right there. Like, who else would be in that? Maybe Florida, Tennessee right now. A lot of the SEC teams I feel like would be in that tier at the moment. I don't feel like Maryland is there yet. I think Maryland is a very good team this year, but they are not an elite team this year. And I think one of the reasons is because Maryland does not have a lockdown defender. I've been talking a lot throughout the year about how when Maryland doesn't get turnovers, they struggle to get stops. And I think I realized tonight what I've been dancing around a little bit is the fact that Maryland just does not have a lockdown defender, a lockdown perimeter defender, I should say, that you can just put on the other team's best guard and they will get shut down. And you saw it a little bit early in the season against Marquette and Cam Jones. And Cam Jones, don't get me wrong, one of the best guards in the country, but he went off for 28 points in that game. You saw it a few weeks later against Purdue and Braden Smith. I thought Braden Smith really controlled that game. Trey Kaufman-Renn was a big story in that one. He scored 21, but Braden Smith scored 24 and had 10 assists. He controlled the game. And you saw it again tonight with Bruce Thornton and the night that he had and the way he was able to take over that game. I think that one of the things keeping Maryland from being an elite team this season and really being a Final Four type contender is the fact that they don't have a lockdown perimeter defender. You coming into the season, you were hoping it was Deshaun Harris-Smith, and he's a good defender, but I don't think he's there at that level yet. You know, you saw at the end of the first half, I talked about the run Bruce Thornton had at the end of the first half. Well, Deshaun Harris-Smith was on him and guarding him for much of that. He struggled against him. Jay Young, without Jacoby Gillespie in the game, struggled against him. And Jacoby Gillespie himself, who I do think Jacoby Gillespie is a good but not an elite defender, struggled against him too. There was nobody that Maryland could throw at him that was going to be able to stop him. Now, you could definitely say maybe there was something else Kevin Willard could have done. Maybe Kevin Willard could have switched up his pick and roll coverage. Maybe he could have put a little more pressure on Bruce Thornton on that pick and roll, and rather than playing that drop coverage, maybe he could have blitzed him. Maybe he could have put some pressure on him. And to that, I would say valid. To that, I would say that's a fair critique, a fair argument. But I think along with that, it's becoming clear that while Maryland is a good defensive team, Maryland is a team reliant on forcing turnovers, and when they don't force turnovers, they have trouble getting stops, in part because they just don't have that elite lockdown guy. And I've been high on this Terps team all year. I'm still high on this Terps team, as gutting as that loss was, but there's a difference between when I talk about the potential of this team, I have been saying I think they can be a second weekend team. There's a difference between being a second weekend team and maybe getting a 5, 6, 7 seed, pulling an upset in the second round and getting to the second weekend, and being a 2 or 3 seed that's favored to get to the second weekend, that is only going to be an underdog in an Elite 8 or a Sweet 16 game, that is basically one upset away from getting to a Final Four. I think that's the difference, and that's kind of what we're looking at with Maryland right now, and that's how I feel after tonight's game, is that Maryland is a very good team this season, but they're not an elite team. And I thought they had a chance coming out here tonight. If they could have gotten a win on the road, it would have been another step forward, another sign that, hey, this team is even better than you think. This team can throw its hat in the ring for best team in the Big Ten, can maybe get in that Big Ten championship discussion. And we saw, though, tonight, one of the things that's holding Maryland back. I think it's that lack of lockdown perimeter defender. Now, what we also saw tonight was that with Jacoby Gillespie in foul trouble, Maryland struggled without him. Maryland, as many scorers and as many pieces as Maryland has, and I think that's one of the best things about this Terps team, is that on any given night, somebody can go off. Jacoby Gillespie runs this team. Jacoby Gillespie is the point guard. He is the guy who makes this offense go, that makes it click. And without him, we saw Maryland struggle a little bit. We saw Maryland struggle a little bit tonight. Jay Young, he's given Maryland some good minutes over the course of the season. He's not Jacoby Gillespie. He cannot do the things Jacoby Gillespie does, and you saw that tonight. He was forced into a lot of action. He played 12 minutes tonight. Deshaun Harris-Smith played 6 minutes, and really those are the only two options for guys to run point when Jacoby Gillespie is out. And it's really Jay Young much more than Deshaun Harris-Smith. I've never really thought of Harris-Smith as a point guard. He can handle the ball a little bit, but that is, I think, another flaw that we are seeing with this Maryland team tonight. And we haven't seen that a lot because Jacoby Gillespie has been so good. The closest game we've seen to this is the Washington game, where he was in foul trouble. He scored just 1 point. I thought that was his worst game of the season. And down the stretch tonight, Gillespie did what Jacoby Gillespie does. He got some big buckets. He got to the rack. He made plays. But I thought it was a real challenge for him trying to defend Bruce Thornton with 4 fouls. And it goes back to that lack of elite perimeter defender conversation we were just having. So maybe is it different if Gillespie's not in foul trouble? Maybe so. I don't know. I thought a couple of his fouls, or one of his fouls anyway, I thought was a play that he did not need to make, where he just reached in and he didn't need to take that foul. But what you saw tonight, I think, from Maryland is are the things that are separating them from being elite. They're a really good team. They're not an elite team. And then you just saw some little things from the Terps, like not making free throws. Tonight was a really bad free throw shooting night for Maryland. 21 of 30 from the line, left some points out there. For the first time in a long time, Maryland struggled from beyond the arc, 3 of 13. I'm not going to read into that because Maryland has been excellent from beyond the arc this season. To me, it was the two things that stood out. It was, how does Maryland play without Jacoby Gillespie on the court? And what does Maryland do when they have to go up against an elite scorer, an elite lead guard like a Bruce Thornton? Do they have somebody who can just lock him down? The answer tonight was no, and we'll see. You don't see a lot of those absolutely elite lead guards in this conference. Looking at Maryland's schedule the rest of the way, let me bring it up here. I don't know how many more Maryland's really going to see, but it's a question that's certainly going to have to be answered in the NCAA tournament. We all know this is a March sport. It's all about how you fare in March, and that's something that Maryland's really going to have to figure out down the stretch here. So a very disappointing night for the Terps. I guess I should talk about the very end of the game here. Tied game, 70-70. I thought Maryland had actually a really nice defensive possession, going zone against Ohio State, not allowing Thornton to get to the rack, and he puts up a 3. I thought it was a tough contested 3. He banks it in, and you just kind of got to shrug your shoulders in that. I didn't think the game was lost in that moment. I think 15, 20 years ago when I was growing up, and it's just a super emotional, super irrational Maryland fan, I would have been yelling about how Maryland never gets the breaks, and of course he's banking that shot in. But the fact of the matter is Maryland lost that game far before he ever put that shot up. Maryland lost the game at the end of the first half when they gave Ohio State hope, and Maryland lost the game over the last 8 minutes when they simply could not defend Bruce Thornton. He was the aggressor. You got to tip your hat to him. He had a great game. I'll say it again. I want to repeat his stat line one more time because it is an extraordinarily impressive stat line, especially when you look at how he brought this Ohio State team back into the game. 31 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, played all 40 minutes in this game, and hit the game-winning shot. Just a fabulous performance by Bruce Thornton. So Maryland's got to go back to the drawing board after this one. And what you can take away as a positive, what you have to take away as a positive, is I thought Julian Reese and Derek Queen looked really good together once again tonight. Julian Reese, 24 points, 13 boards in this one. I thought he made his impact felt on the defensive end as well. He had 2 blocks, but I felt like he was really impacting the game defensively. Only 1 foul in this. And on a night where Maryland as a team was in foul trouble, where Maryland as a team struggled hitting free throws. That's 2 things Julian Reese has struggled with throughout his career. Well, Julian Reese only picks up 1 foul tonight. Julian Reese played 35 minutes in this game. Julian Reese was 10 of 11 from the charity stripe. Julian Reese did everything you possibly could have asked him to do. He is a rock for this program, and I think you got to take that as a positive coming out of that. I thought you also have to take Derek Queen's play as a positive as well. He struggled from the line. That was disappointing to see because he's a good free throw shooter. But he goes 7 of 13 from the stripe. He missed one in the closing minutes. That was really big. A tough night for him from the line. But I thought him and Queen played really well together, especially early, and he puts up 13 points, 8 boards. I thought it was a nice performance by the front court in this one. That is the biggest positive that I would take out of this game, is that I think we see a refreshed, rejuvenated Derek Queen down the stretch who can really do damage. And I think what you're seeing from Julian Reese is why you want to have seniors in this in a program, why you want to have guys who have been around for 4 years and developed and are grown men and know how to play this game. Julian Reese looked like all of that tonight, and it's unfortunate that we have to talk about this in couch terms. Like, in the loss, he was excellent, because Julian Reese was a reason that Maryland should have won this game tonight. So all in all, an extraordinarily disappointing night for Maryland, and now they got a rebound. They have Rutgers at home on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday, and this is a Rutgers team that just beat Illinois earlier this week. It's a Rutgers team that now has Dylan Harper back in the lineup, and Dylan Harper looked really good in that one, putting up 28 points. They have 2 uber-talented freshmen in Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, and their numbers don't look great. Their record doesn't look great, but Harper struggled with injuries all year long. They're 71 in the net right now, but I think Rutgers is a team that you can't take lightly. I think Rutgers is a team that is going to give a lot of teams trouble down the stretch. And the key for Maryland now at this point is coming off a disappointing, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking loss like that, is how do you rebound? Do you let it beat you twice? It's so cliche, but it's so true. You can't let a game like that beat you twice. And I thought Maryland did an excellent job coming off that Northwestern loss, which was equally as heartbreaking, equally as gut-wrenching, equally as disappointing, rebounding and running off 4 in a row. The key for Maryland now, with 4 of the next 5 at home, just a road game at Nebraska in that stretch, is can they duplicate that? Can they quickly move on with this nice stretch of home games coming up here, and can they turn the page on Ohio State? Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, this has been the Route 1 Rundown.